Greetings, dear audience. Before we dive into today's tale, we invite you to share your location in the comments below. And remember to show your support by liking and subscribing. For the last 6 months, Ben had been navigating a life that seemed strange and devoid of meaning. His marriage to Kathy, once vibrant with warmth and laughter, had turned into a mere shadow of its former self. Once, her laughter had the power to elevate his mood on the toughest days, and her gentle touch provided the comfort of knowing he was cherished. Now, those moments had become mere echoes of the past. Kathy had become increasingly aloof, her actions shifting in ways that Ben could no longer overlook. Their dialogues had reduced to shallow interactions concerning trivial matters. The mundane tasks of groceries, news, and bills had overshadowed the profound connection they once enjoyed, both in emotion and in physical closeness, leaving it all but erased. Each effort Ben put forth to close the widening gap between them was met with apathy or even blatant dismissal. He still recalled the last moment he attempted to reach out to her, his hand softly resting on hers as they shared a movie together. She swiftly distanced herself, offering a vague excuse about feeling fatigued. That night, as Ben lay awake in bed, his gaze fixed on the ceiling, he came to a troubling realization. He couldn't remember the last time Kathy had reached out to him of her own accord. Visions of the initial chapters of their union echoed in his thoughts, both poignant and lingering. In those days, she was his entire world, his closest companion, trusted confidant, and genuine partner. They exchanged visions, joy, and aspirations for what lay ahead. Yet now, it seemed she had closed him off entirely, constructing an impenetrable barrier between them. The most challenging aspect was the unpredictability. Ben found himself bewildered, struggling to grasp the shifts that had occurred and the reasons behind them. Had he committed a mistake? Or had he neglected to accomplish something? He devoted endless hours to revisiting memories, seeking the moment when their joy began to fray. Yet Kathy remained silent. Each time he inquired about her well-being, she brushed him off with a terse response, adamantly claiming that all was well. Her tone cut through the air, her gaze turned away, as if she found it impossible to meet his eyes any longer. The pain went beyond mere silence. A sense of indifference seemed to envelop Kathy, as if she had long since stopped caring. The warmth she once shared so generously had disappeared, leaving Ben with a sense of isolation and desolation. He explored every avenue to rekindle the flame they had once known, crafting enchanting evenings, delighting her with thoughtful surprises, and even proposing they seek guidance together. Yet every attempt was greeted with the same justifications. Overwhelmed, anxious, fatigued. After months of effort, Ben was beginning to lose faith that there was any chance remaining for them. He had arrived at his limit. The stillness, the lingering uncertainties, and the growing chasm between them had turned intolerable. He could no longer maintain the facade that everything was all right. This evening, he made a firm decision to face the tension directly. It's time to confront the matter head-on. It's time to confront the issues head-on. He sought the truth, regardless of the potential chaos it could bring. After dinner, he discovered Kathy in the living room, mindlessly scrolling through her phone, her face reflecting a sense of detachment and her attention clearly elsewhere. For a moment, Ben paused, the burden of uncertainty weighing down on him. Yet, gathering all the bravery within him, he took a step ahead. "Kathy," Ben started. His voice was firm, yet laced with fatigue. "We need to talk." She hardly lifted her gaze from her device. "Is it possible to hold off for a moment, Ben? I'm currently engaged in a task." "No, it can't," he replied, stepping to position himself directly in front of her. "I can no longer endure this existence, filled with questions about what transpired between us, what became of you." Kathy sighed, setting her phone aside, her posture still defensive with her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I need to know what's going on," she said. "What is this regarding now?" Ben inhaled deeply, striving to maintain control over his feelings. "It revolves around our connection, reflecting on the distance that has grown between us over the past 6 months. You've closed me off, both in heart and presence, as if we were mere acquaintances sharing the same space. I seek to understand the reason behind this. Her expression grew steely as she shook her head in rejection. I have no idea what you're referring to, she replied with a cutting tone. You're analyzing every little detail too much. Ben's frustration reached its peak. Contemplating too much. Kathy, we hardly even connect anymore. Every time I attempt to reach out, you distance yourself. It seems you're not willing to engage with me. It feels as though I'm an unwelcome presence in your world. I am your husband. Shouldn't I be given an explanation? Kathy narrowed her eyes, her voice eerily composed. Ben, my body is my choice, she stated calmly. And, generally speaking, you ought to seek permission before considering any physical contact with me. I navigate my existence according to my own vision, and I refuse to let anyone infringe upon my limits. Her words struck Ben with the force of a tangible impact. He gazed at her, utterly astonished. What is happening? He succeeded in uttering, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. Kathy, this is something fresh. This doesn't reflect who you are. Over the past 6 months, it feels as though you've transformed into a different person. Are you truly listening to what you're saying? This is utterly perplexing. Kathy's demeanor shifted, her tone becoming frigid. I was once so naive, she snapped. I allowed your influence to shape me, permitted your control over my choices, but I've gained wisdom since then. A woman is entitled to greater rights than a man, and it is essential that you honor my choices and fulfill my requests. Ben sensed an unsettling change in the very foundation of his reality. The woman he cherished, the woman he believed he understood, now appeared as a stranger, uttering words that resonated as foreign and unknown. Kathy, he uttered, his voice quaking with incredulity. What do you mean by that? I have always treated you with respect. I have consistently offered you autonomy and made sacrifices for your sake. Have you been exploring some provocative feminist literature? Her eyes sparkled with fury. There it is, she retorted. You're quick to judge, attempting to undermine me and portray me as unreasonable. And don't assume I'm oblivious to the true nature of this situation. You're upset because I no longer share a bed with you. That's all individuals like you focus on, your desires. Ben pressed his palms against his forehead, grappling with the sheer ridiculousness of her claims. Frustration intertwined with despair as he started to question whether there was anything worth saving in their marriage. As he finally turned his gaze toward her, his face revealed a blend of anguish and frustration. All right, Kathy, he replied slowly, his voice laden with acceptance. If that's the perspective you're choosing, then here is my reply. My wallet reflects my decisions. My money embodies my freedom. All right, let's lay it out clearly. You'll secure a full-time position and contribute half towards our expenses. What do you think about that in terms of honoring decisions? Kathy's face twisted in fury. That's manipulation, she exclaimed, her voice escalating. Ben, your behavior is reminiscent of an abuser. I anticipated that you would turn to manipulation and attempt to dominate my feelings. Control? Ben retorted, raising his hands in astonishment. Kathy, I find myself questioning who you have become. What did you do that? When did you find yourself adrift like this? Kathy sprang up, shaking with rage. This is precisely why I've transformed, she retorted. Because individuals like you believe they can manipulate women into compliance. Ben rose to his feet, his frustration reaching a breaking point. Manipulate you? For months, I've poured my heart into saving this marriage, seeking to understand the issues and find solutions, while you've chosen to distance yourself and treat me as if I'm the adversary. A charged stillness enveloped the space, their breaths coming in quick bursts as their fury clashed like thunderous skies. Ben experienced a profound, all-consuming sorrow wash over him, more intense than anything he had encountered previously. This had ceased to be a union. It had transformed into a war zone. He averted his gaze, unable to face her. For the first time, the idea of divorce didn't evoke a sense of defeat. Instead, it emerged as a potential escape. The following morning, following the intense confrontation, Ben sat in his car outside a lawyer's office, gazing at the sign for White and Associates. His stomach twisted in knots as he grappled with the gravity of his impending decision. He was not one to act impulsively, yet the thought of enduring a lifetime in a cold, antagonistic marriage was simply intolerable. The attorney, a seasoned gentleman named Trevor White, welcomed Ben with a confident handshake and an air of professionalism. In the course of the next hour, Ben meticulously unfolded his predicament, illustrating Kathy's progressively erratic conduct, her emotional and physical detachment, and the peculiar beliefs that had supplanted their once meaningful dialogues. Trevor absorbed every word, occasionally scribbling notes while remaining silent. As Ben concluded, Trevor reclined in his chair, thoughtfully adjusting his glasses. He remarked that it's quite a challenging predicament. His tone was deliberate, yet it isn't particularly unusual. Notable shifts in personality and an unwillingness to participate may occasionally indicate outside factors at play. She might be delving into a fresh perspective, or maybe it's something more intimate. Ben's brow furrowed, a tension coiling in his gut. Are you implying that there could be another person involved? Trevor gave a casual shrug. That's one option, yet it's crucial to avoid making hasty assumptions. Before jumping to conclusions, let's concentrate on actionable measures. There are choices available to you. We can begin crafting the divorce papers at this moment, or you may choose to take some time to observe the situation. Achieving a deeper insight into the situation could provide you with clarity and potentially a tactical edge should this progress to legal proceedings. Ben nodded thoughtfully, taking in the counsel. Let's pause the paperwork for the time being. I must observe how events develop. That evening, back at home, Ben settled at the kitchen table with a notebook, carefully tallying their monthly expenses, mortgage, utilities, groceries, and beyond. Upon calculating the total, he split the amount into 2 equal parts. His portion was already accounted for by his income, yet he meticulously noted the precise amount Kathy would need to contribute to fulfill her share. Next, Ben pulled a small wooden box from the closet and set it down prominently on the kitchen counter. The gesture, though uncomplicated, conveyed a distinct message. Later that evening, as Kathy entered the kitchen, she found Ben sitting at the table, waiting. With his notebook in hand, he spoke with a steady demeanor. Kathy, this outlines all our monthly expenses. I have fulfilled my part. The box awaits your contribution. Kathy halted, her gaze sharpening with suspicion. What is the meaning of this? It signifies, Ben responded calmly, that you've articulated your wish for autonomy and for your limits to be honored. I'm paying tribute to that. If we're truly partners in this marriage, then we must equally share the responsibilities that come with our home. Kathy's face turned crimson, her lips forming a tight, thin line. This is a form of influence. She broke. You seem to be seeking retribution for my refusal to conform to your vision of a partner. No, Kathy, Ben replied, his voice unwavering yet resolute. I honor your decisions. However, freedom carries with it a sense of duty. For years, I have shouldered the financial responsibilities of this family. If our relationship is set to evolve, then our agreement must adapt accordingly. Her eyes ignited with fury, and she retorted sharply. It's clear that my job doesn't offer the same financial rewards as yours. This situation is unjust. Perhaps it's time to reconsider that. Ben replied with a sense of tranquility. He motioned toward the box. The deadline for submitting your contribution is the end of the month. Kathy burst out of the kitchen, grumbling quietly about deceit and emotional turmoil. Ben chose not to follow her. Instead, he reclined in his chair, experiencing an unusual sense of disconnection. He felt no anger now, only exhaustion. In the days that ensued, Ben observed Kathy intently. At first glance, she seemed to be managing just fine. However, it was evident that she had no desire to implement any significant alterations. She often voiced her frustrations regarding Ben's excessive expectations, showed little initiative to seek a more suitable position, and persisted in her part-time role at her previous job. Many of her days were consumed by scrolling through social media or engaging in phone conversations, showing minimal effort to participate more actively in the household. As the bills came in, the wooden box remained glaringly overlooked. Ben chose not to address her immediately. Instead, he watched her actions silently, akin to a researcher studying a phenomenon. What captivated him most was the underlying bitterness she appeared to harbor. Kathy had always held her head high. Yet, pride had transformed into a shadowy force, a relentless denial to entertain the notion that she could hold any accountability for the widening chasm between them. Each time Ben raised even the slightest issue, she skillfully sidestepped the conversation by labeling him as controlling or dismissive. As the month drew to a close, the box sat untouched, void of any contents. Ben felt a familiar ache, though he had anticipated it. The absence of effort still cut deep. He had wished, even if just a little, that Kathy would perceive the situation as a chance to demonstrate her dedication to their partnership. What he encountered was nothing but resistance and an unwillingness to confront the truths of their shared existence. As the bills arrived, Ben found himself at the kitchen table once more, the notebook and the pristine wooden box laid out before him. He felt a heavy weight in his chest at the thought of the impending conversation. It would undoubtedly spark yet another confrontation, yet he was resolute in his decision. Kathy's actions in the last month had only strengthened his determination. To truly embrace her newfound principles, she had to confront the responsibilities that accompanied them. "Kathy," Ben is calling from the kitchen. His tone was deliberate. "Could you please come here for a moment?" Moments later, she stood in the doorway, arms folded and a fierce frown carved into her features. "What is it at this moment?" Ben pointed to the wooden box resting on the counter. "The deadline for payment has arrived, yet the box remains devoid of any contents. Failure to make payment will result in incurring late fees and penalties." Her frown deepened, and the atmosphere in the room grew increasingly charged. "I'm aware of that," she retorted. "Please stop persistently reminding me." "So what's causing the hold-up?" Ben inquired, his tone steady yet assertive. "We had a mutual understanding that you would take care of your portion. I have managed my portion. Now is the moment for you to take charge of your responsibilities." That was all it needed to ignite her wrath. Her voice escalated as she retorted. "Incredible, Ben. You are meant to be my partner in life. A true partner takes on the financial responsibilities rather than shifting them onto his spouse." "This is quite disappointing," Ben retorted. "A true partner would fulfill her responsibilities without voicing concerns about limits and approvals. You initiated this madness, and if you desire a shift, then begin by taking actions that will earn my respect. For years, I bore the financial burden, never uttering a word of discontent. You've distanced yourself, established new boundaries for our relationship, and made me feel as though I'm the source of the issues. Now, when the moment arrives to take action or remain silent, isn't this what you desired? Freedom, greater liberties." Her face flushed with color, and for an instant, it seemed as though she might strike out once more. With a swift pivot, she marched away, the bedroom door crashing shut in her wake. From the kitchen, Ben could hear Kathy bustling about in the bedroom, rifling through drawers and shuffling papers, her murmurs barely audible. Almost 30 minutes elapsed before she came back, grasping a small bundle of cash and a handful of coins. She approached and let it fall into the box with a sharp clatter, her expression a blend of anger and frustration. "There," she remarked with a sharp edge, her tone dripping with irony. "Is that what you were hoping for?" "That's all I possess." Down to the very last cent. Ben cast a fleeting look at the box before returning his gaze to her, his demeanor steady and inscrutable. "Thank you," he replied softly, yet Kathy had more to say. She folded her arms, resting against the counter, her tone cutting and filled with disdain. "I never thought I would end up with someone so consumed by greed. You resemble all those other self-centered, domineering individuals." Consumed by his fixation on wealth and influence, Ben remained silent. He had come to realize that entering into a dispute would only exacerbate the situation. Instead, he reclined in his chair, observing her with an air of serene detachment. Her words hardly affected him any longer. What held significance now was her next move. Would she attempt to endure with the scant resources remaining to her? Would she finally muster the courage to seek a more fulfilling job? Or would she finally seek his assistance despite all her defiance? No matter her decision, Ben was certain of one thing. This had ceased to be a collaboration. The morning air held a refreshing chill as Ben lingered in the kitchen, savoring his coffee, his eyes drawn to the window. The phone lay quietly on the counter next to him. He had reached out to Trevor earlier, ultimately confronting the choice he had been sidestepping for weeks. "Prepare the documents," he instructed, his tone firm yet tinged with a sense of acceptance. "The moment has come for a separation." "All right," Trevor replied, his tone a blend of professionalism and empathy. "The documents will be prepared within a week." A week seemed to be the perfect duration. It allowed Ben to watch Kathy closely and validate his previous suspicions. Their union was irreparably fractured. It also granted him the opportunity to ready himself emotionally for the unavoidable clash. He intended to deliver the papers to her himself, not for malice, but because he sought resolution, to witness her response and ultimately dissolve the stifling atmosphere that had enveloped their household. The week unfolded slowly, with each passing day revealing more about Kathy's behavior. To Ben's astonishment, she appeared to settle down. The furious eruptions and biting replies diminished, giving way to a calmer, more subdued demeanor. She continued to spend hours scrolling through her phone, remaining distant, yet the sharpness in her voice had dulled. Yet, Ben remained unable to dismiss the feeling that something was brewing just out of sight. He observed the way her expression would constrict while she was engaged in texting, her fingers darting swiftly over the screen, her face etched with focus. The tension emanated from her as she concentrated on the device, her lips forming a tight line. Whatever was unfolding, it was evident that finances, or the absence thereof, were at the heart of the matter. As the papers came together at last, Ben experienced a curious blend of relief and apprehension. He collected them from Trevor's office that afternoon, then devoted the remainder of the day to contemplating the situation. This marked the onset of the conclusion. As he settled into his chair, the envelope weighed down his lap, and he envisioned the evening's possibilities unfolding before him. He would patiently await Kathy's return, present her with the papers, and allow her to respond in her own way. It might be difficult, yet it would signify the conclusion of a chapter. As the evening unfolded, Kathy surprised Ben with an unexpected twist. She arrived late, nearly 2 hours beyond her typical schedule. Ben hardly lifted his gaze when she entered, yet there was an undeniable quality to her presence that caused him to hesitate. She appeared transformed. She carried herself with a newfound ease, her expression gentler. The lingering fury that had enveloped her for months had finally dissipated. Instead, she gave him a delicate, hesitant smile. "Ah," she said, placing her bag on the ground, her voice unexpectedly soft. "Hi," Ben replied, his gaze fixed on her with intent curiosity. She glided through the kitchen with a grace he hadn't witnessed in months, retrieving a teapot and rummaging through the cupboards for tea bags. "I thought I might prepare some tea for us," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of shyness. "It has been some time since we last engaged in conversation." Ben arched an eyebrow. Curiosity ignited within him. "Would you like some tea?" "Indeed," she remarked, setting down 2 mugs on the table. "I discovered some treats in the pantry and thought it would be pleasant to take a moment to relax." Her smile widened, radiating warmth, and Ben sensed a gentle easing of his defenses. This was not the Kathy he had come to know over the last 6 months. It felt like she had just rediscovered the essence of the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago. He settled into his chair, observing her graceful movements as she poured the tea and artfully arranged the sweets on a delicate plate. "Thank you," he replied with a hint of hesitation, taking the mug she offered him. "This comes as a surprise." "I know," she replied, taking a seat across from him. "Lately, my mind has been quite active with thoughts. Who we are, concerning all matters." Ben felt a sudden jolt in his chest. He felt the urge to inquire about her meaning, to seek clarity, yet he restrained himself. He paused, savoring a sip of his tea, curious to see if she would offer an explanation. Their dialogue began tentatively, filled with light exchanges about the children, the climate, and a neighbor's recent vehicle acquisition. As the minutes unfolded, Kathy appeared to settle into the dialogue, her tone becoming more inviting, tinged with a hint of nostalgia. Even so, Ben couldn't rid himself of the nagging sensation that something was amiss. Her abrupt change, the gentle inflection, everything seemed overly deliberate. Thoughts surged through his mind, each one vying for clarity. Had she uncovered his intentions? Was this a bid to salvage their union? Or was there a more profound motive at work that eluded his understanding? As the last sip of tea was savored, Ben had come to a conclusion. The divorce papers could be postponed until tomorrow. He required additional time to watch Kathy closely, to determine whether this was merely another effort to control him. He was determined to remain vigilant for the time being. While tidying up side by side, Ben stole fleeting glances of Kathy from the periphery of his vision. She seemed serene, nearly at ease, yet he picked up on the faint indicators of unease. Her hands clutched the cloth with a tension that betrayed her thoughts as she cleaned the counter, the rigidity in her jaw revealing her inner turmoil when she believed he was unaware. There was an unmistakable sense that something was amiss. The hour had come to retire for the night. Ben stepped into the softly illuminated living room, unfurling the bedding across the couch. For the last month and a half, this had become his ritual. The bed they once shared now a mere echo of the past. The stillness of the house weighed down the atmosphere, a persistent echo of the chasm that lay between him and Kathy. The gentle cascade of water from the shower created an unexpectedly soothing ambience. As Kathy stepped out of the bathroom, her hair enveloped in a towel and her complexion glowing from a recent wash, Ben found himself unexpectedly taken aback. She smiled at him gently, her voice surprisingly inviting. "I was considering," she said, casually leaning against the doorway, "perhaps you could return to our bedroom tonight. It has been some time since we last found ourselves together in the same bed." Ben blinked, taken aback by her abrupt change in demeanor. He halted, seeking clarity in her expressions. What an unusual twist of fate, he mused, his thoughts racing to catch up. After a moment, he was able to reply with both courtesy and conviction. "I find myself feeling quite fatigued, Kathy. A lengthy day awaits me." Her smile dimmed slightly, giving way to a reflective expression. "What a pity," she whispered, a hint of melancholy lacing her words. "Wishing you the sweetest of dreams, and should you reconsider, know that I'll be right here, ready and waiting." She pivoted and strode off, leaving Ben rooted in place, engulfed in confusion and unease. The remainder of the night unfolded in a quiet unease as Ben reclined on the couch, his gaze fixed on the shadowy ceiling above. His mind continually returned to that moment, pondering every detail. What prompts this moment? He pondered. Why? On the very day I intended to present her with the divorce papers, had she inexplicably altered her demeanor as if nothing had transpired? The change seemed intentional, akin to a strategic play in a match he hadn't known was underway. His curiosity tugged at him, drawing him further into the ambiguity she had woven. With the first light of dawn filtering through the curtains, Ben arrived at his decision. It's time to move forward with confidence, leaving doubt behind. The morning sunlight poured into the kitchen, casting a warm glow as he sat at the table, cradling a steaming mug of coffee. The envelope containing the divorce papers lay beside him, a silent testament to his unwavering resolve. He savored a deliberate sip of coffee, bracing himself for the dialogue that lay ahead. Kathy glided in with a buoyant step, radiating joy and warmth. "Good morning, darling," she said to him with warmth. Her voice was a gentle embrace, filled with sweetness and warmth. "Morning," Ben responded, maintaining a calm and steady tone. She filled her cup with tea and settled into her seat opposite him, her demeanor nearly overly cheerful. Following a brief exchange of light conversation, Her attitude changed ever so slightly. She stole a sidelong glance at him, her voice wavering slightly. "You know, Ben," she started, a hint of mischief in her voice. "This might come off as a bit bold, but I was curious if you could possibly lend me $150 just for a week. I assure you that I will repay you." Ben set his coffee cup down with deliberate care, his eyes narrowing as the realization struck him. There it stood, the embrace of warmth, the unexpected touch of kindness. Everything was meticulously planned as part of her approach. Kathy was in need of funds, and she was embracing the persona of the devoted spouse to secure them. He reclined in his chair, observing her with meticulous attention. $150, is it? Ben spoke with a serene demeanor, his eyes unwavering. "Well, Kathy, I have something even more exciting." Her eyes sparkled, and a soft laugh escaped her lips. "Improved? What, $200? $500, she teased, a soft laugh escaping her lips at her own jest. Ben extended his hand to the envelope, pushing it gently in her direction, his voice steady and composed. He responded with a straightforward answer. Kathy's laughter dwindled as she grasped the envelope, a look of bewilderment crossing her features. As she opened the envelope, her gaze fell upon the divorce papers within. Her expression transformed, beginning with confusion, then giving way to shock, and ultimately escalating into a rising tide of panic. "Ben," she faltered, her voice quivering. "What is this all about?" "It is precisely what it appears to be," he stated, his tone unwavering. "Legal documents for dissolution of marriage. After much contemplation, I've reached the realization that this marriage is beyond my ability to mend." Her hands trembled as she gazed at the documents. "Ben, this feels a bit abrupt. We can't simply discard everything in this manner. We must make an effort. There is still hope for our marriage. I can change." Ben shook his head, his determination unwavering. "Kathy, that opportunity is past. For months, I've been reflecting on what went awry, attempting to mend it, striving to return us to our former selves, yet you consistently distanced yourself from me. You made me feel insignificant, as if I were an outsider in a place that should have felt like mine. It seems that whenever you require something, you revert to your affectionate demeanor. I can see it clearly." She extended her hand over the table, her voice rising in urgency. "Ben, you just don't understand," she pleaded, her voice quivering. "I've been navigating through quite a bit. My intention was never to cause you pain. I simply require additional time to sort everything out. I kindly ask you to reconsider this action." Ben locked eyes with her, his gaze steady and his voice composed yet resolute. "Kathy, I've taken considerable time to ponder our marriage and the way you've interacted with me over the last few months. The unrelenting strain, the subtle control. This situation isn't beneficial for either of us. We both deserve more than what we have." Her expression twisted, her gaze falling to the divorce papers as though she could make them vanish with sheer will. "I don't want this," she whispered. "I refuse to continue living this way," Ben stated with conviction. He rose from his seat, coffee mug in hand. "Feel free to take as long as you require to review the documents, but my choice is conclusive." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her there, the envelope still clutched tightly in her hands. The month of the divorce proceedings marked the most challenging period in Ben's life. The legal struggles, the emotional turmoil, and Kathy's persistent efforts to find common ground pushed his determination to its limits. She wept, pleaded, and vowed to transform, striving to sway him to reconsider his choice and salvage their union. Yet Ben had firmly decided. Too much had transpired, and retreat was no longer an option. With Trevor White by his side, Ben possessed a distinct advantage in the divorce proceedings. Trevor, an experienced attorney, possessed a keen insight into family law and the complexities of high-stakes negotiations. United in their efforts, they crafted a plan that positioned Ben advantageously, safeguarding his financial investments and the assets he had accumulated. Trevor's strategy was systematic and deliberate, underscoring Ben's position as the main provider during their marriage and pointing out Kathy's restricted financial autonomy stemming from her part-time employment. Kathy, conversely, found herself with limited choices. Her modest earnings from a part-time position provided scant influence in the settlement. Trevor had skillfully crafted the scenario by highlighting her absence of financial autonomy. And as a result, Kathy's efforts to advocate for a more advantageous division swiftly unraveled. She envisioned securing a more significant portion of their assets, yet lacking a solid income or career opportunities to support her assertions. Her requests faced opposition. As the legal proceedings dragged on, Kathy started to sense the weight of the pressure increasing. Without a stable career to rely on and just sporadic part-time jobs to sustain her, she felt trapped by the harshness of her circumstances. The escalating legal expenses and the looming possibility of receiving scant financial assistance from the divorce painted a vivid picture of the security she had previously assumed was hers to keep. Desperation crept into her efforts to reach an agreement. Yet, whenever she attempted to assert her needs, Trevor countered with persuasive reasoning that maintained the tension in the conversation. Ultimately, Kathy found herself compelled to agree to a settlement that yielded far less than her aspirations. Ben had liberated himself from the stifling pressure and deceit of his marriage, yet the sorrow of what was lost continued to haunt him. Kathy, on the other hand, was determined to persevere. She made multiple attempts to revive the connection they once shared, yet Ben stood firm in his decision. He conveyed with a soft yet resolute demeanor that their relationship had reached its conclusion. As time passed, her efforts diminished, and ultimately, she slipped away from his existence. Months later, as Ben stood in line at the grocery store, an unexpected voice caught his attention. As he turned, his gaze fell upon Maria, a colleague of Kathy's from her part-time job. They offered courteous hellos and started a conversation about the commonplace subjects: employment, daily experiences, and the climate. Yet, in a seemingly casual manner, Maria uttered a phrase that caused Ben's heart to race. "Work has been quite a whirlwind without Kathy," she remarked. To be frank, her reliability was questionable even when she was present, frequently feigning illness or taking unexpected days off. Ben's brows knitted together in curiosity. "Could you clarify what you mean by that?" Maria paused, her eyes darting about, as if uncertain whether to proceed. "Well," she began, her voice softening to a whisper, "I hesitate to speak up, but Kathy's reliability left much to be desired. She would often take time off with little warning. And there was this fellow. She brought him up several times, and I felt there was a deeper connection between them than mere friendship." Ben felt a knot form in his stomach as the truth dawned on him. "Are you suggesting that she was unfaithful?" Maria nodded, her discomfort evident. "Initially, I had my doubts, but now I believe she did. She never explicitly stated it, yet it was quite evident. I held back my words until now. Your marriage had its challenges, to say the least." Ben remained motionless, his thoughts swirling as the pieces began to align. The gap, the frustration, the unusual actions. Everything clicked into place at last. Kathy had been navigating two worlds, and he had remained unaware, missing all the clues along the way. "Thank you, Maria," he replied, his tone steady yet weary. "Thank you for sharing that with me." As Ben exited the store, a tempest of feelings surged within him. Fury, treachery, and, oddly enough, a sense of liberation. For months, he had wrestled with self-doubt, questioning whether he had acted too hastily in bringing the marriage to a close. Yet at this moment, he possessed the truth. Kathy had undermined their relationship long before he reached his conclusion. The pain of betrayal cut deep, yet it also offered a feeling of resolution. He was justified in choosing to leave. He had taken the essential steps to reclaim his existence and forge ahead. A month later, I discovered that Kathy had taken up residence with a man named Roger. To be frank, it didn't matter to me. Indeed, I experienced an unusual feeling of liberation. After all that had transpired, her decisions no longer surprised me. She was embracing her existence, and I was at last liberated to embrace my own. That was the only thing of significance at this moment. I encountered a new individual as well. She goes by the name Lisa. She stands apart from Kathy in countless ways. genuine and sincere, offering kindness freely and openly. With Lisa, everything seemed to flow naturally. There were no contests, no suspense. We were free to be our true selves. Her presence brought laughter back into my life, a joy I hadn't recognized as absent until it returned so effortlessly. I recall the moment I found myself truly smiling for the first time since the divorce. We found ourselves on her couch, engrossed in a light-hearted rom-com that I would have never chosen to watch with Kathy. Yet Lisa remained unfazed. She simply sought enjoyment, and we certainly found it. After what seemed like an eternity, a sense of lightness washed over me. I wasn't overlooking the past. It had always lingered in the background, yet I found myself no longer ensnared by it. I found myself at ease, no longer preoccupied with thoughts of Kathy or the reasons behind the unfolding events. I had stopped doubting my decisions. I was merely existing. Dear listeners, I invite you to share your insights in the comment section below. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe.